In honoring the service of Vietnam veterans and their survivors, we at the National Veterans Legal Services Program think it's important to remember the problems they had to go through over the decades by the poor treatment they received at the hands of their government. The government promises veterans that if they serve, the government will take care of them for injuries related to their service. But unlike World War II veterans and recent veterans, the government didn't keep that promise for Vietnam veterans. And there's no better example of that than the way they treated veterans with regard to their exposure to Agent Orange, a contaminant toxic herbicide that the government sprayed in Vietnam and ended up causing injuries to veterans and civilians in Vietnam. And unfortunately, the government, in the person of the VA, wouldn't agree that many disabilities were related to that exposure. They said only chloracne, a skin condition, was related, and denied tens of thousands of claims for disability benefits. And veterans had to struggle for decades. NVLSP took up the fight on their behalf. We tried to get, and were successful in getting Congress to repeal the bar to court review that Vietnam veterans and others faced in getting to overturn the VA decisions. Then after that, we were able to sue the VA in a class action about their treatment of veterans exposed to Agent Orange and get the VA to finally recognize that a whole host of cancers, diabetes, ischemic heart disease, and other diseases were connected to Agent Orange, and finally, through the class action lawsuit, pay them retroactive benefits back to the date of their original claim. It was a long fight. Not only did we have to win the litigation at the beginning, but we also had to go back to court 5 times to enforce the consent decree that the VA continually violated because they didn't want to pay these retroactive benefits. Each and every time, the court overruled the VA's objections to paying out retroactive benefits under the consent decree, so that in the end, $5.2 billion in retroactive benefits has been paid to Vietnam veterans and their survivors. We're very proud of that fight that was successful for Vietnam veterans. And the good part about that also is that it created a template for how the government should treat veterans in subsequent services, like service in Southwest Asia, leading to the government passage of the PACT Act, which gets veterans who served in Southwest Asia, Afghanistan, Iraq, and other areas in Southwest Asia benefits due to exposure to toxic burn pits that were used on bases all across Southwest Asia. And so that's the legacy of our fight against the VA on Agent Orange, and it's part of the legacy of Vietnam veterans and their service to our country.